Welcome into press coverage. I'm Dan Hope, joined by Andy Anders here on a beautiful day in Columbus. The doors are open here at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and spring football is in the air. We are less than 24 hours away from Ohio State's first spring football practice of the year, and we had an opportunity to talk to 6 of Ohio State's offensive players on Monday, including the top 3 quarterbacks on the depth chart, those being Will Howard, Devin Brown, and Lincoln Kienholz. And I know that I, in particular, was interested in talking to Lincoln and Devin today, and that's where I spent my time, because the big question I think on everybody's mind is, are these guys still going to be here in the fall? Because Ryan Day brought in Will Howard, a guy who started 27 games at Kansas State. We would expect that he's going to be the starting quarterback, but Devin and Lincoln are both going into this spring with the mindset that they have a chance to win this starting job, and that's the approach they're taking into this spring. They are not talking right now about what could happen after the spring. Right now, they're just focused on trying to win this starting job. And Devin was asked point blank if he had heard about people talking about him potentially transferring, and he responded. He said, I think those people are cowards. He said these people are sitting in their basement talking about me, and they don't know what my thought process is. And so we will see what ultimately comes to pass as this quarterback competition unfolds. But as of right now, both those guys, they're just focused on trying to win this starting job, and neither of them has made any decisions about what could happen after this spring if they don't win the job.
Right, and I think for Will Howard, I caught the last good chunk of his interview there. A lot of his focus in these first months at Ohio State has been about building rapport, building a relationship with his teammates. He hasn't been here like Lincoln and Devin have, so he's been trying to build that so he can then use it to, have more of a leadership role as the year progresses. And, he tries to win that starting job and to become that next big Ohio State quarterback. He also talked a lot today about Chip Kelly, Ohio State's new offensive coordinator, and how not only he's super excited to have Kelly because he grew up an Eagles fan. Chip Kelly used to coach the Eagles, so he was very excited from that perspective. But he also said that he makes it very easy for quarterbacks, that the throws in Chip Kelly's offense and the balance with the running game make it very seamless for a quarterback to fill in and sort of just get his feet under him and get going as the year progresses here. So a lot of good things Will Howard had to say about Chip Kelly, about his teammates, and about just trying to acclimate to being the potential starting quarterback at Ohio State, or at least competing with Devin and Lincoln for this position.
And it was interesting. I asked Lincoln about how Ryan Day approached it with them in terms of how he's going to be involved in the quarterback room. And Lincoln said that, the quarterbacks have basically been told that Ryan's going to be that CEO this year. He's going to work with the entire team, offense, defense, and special teams. He's not going to be as involved with the quarterbacks on a day-to-day basis as he has been in the past. Now, Lincoln smiled when he was asked in a follow-up, do you think that, Ryan Day is going to end up being back in that quarterback room? Is he just going to naturally gravitate back to that home? And, I think certainly the quarterbacks expect that Ryan Day is going to continue to work with them, that they're still going to be able to go to him and ask him any questions they may have, and he's still going to spend a lot of time trying to help them. But it is going to be a different dynamic here this year with Chip Kelly coming in. He's going to call the plays. He's going to coach the quarterbacks, and Ryan Day is going to be able to really be more of that all-around head coach with the team rather than focusing mostly on the offense. And certainly the hope here within the Woody Hayes Athletic Center is that by him being able to work with every unit, that Ohio State will be able to be elite in all areas and ultimately be able to compete for a national championship.
Quarterbacks weren't the only people we talked to today. We also talked to Travion Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, and Donovan Jackson. I spent a lot of time at Donovan's table. You know me, Dan. I'm an offensive line guy. I like to talk to linemen. He gave a fantastic demonstration on how to properly eat a Thurman's burger. Just from the back for the people that aren't in the know, I guess. Donovan said not to hold it from the sides, but be sure to hold it from the back. But in that conversation, he was mostly talking about going out to eat with Seth McLaughlin and trying to build that chemistry with Ohio State's likely new starting center, the Alabama transfer here as this offseason progresses. But in coming back for Donovan, this was probably the biggest takeaway from his interview. He's really motivated by what happened at the end of the Michigan game with him. And, for maybe people who don't remember, Donovan maybe tripped, maybe fell down on the Ohio State's final offensive play of that game, the interception that McCord was hit on and threw. And he talked about lifting with intent, approaching this offseason with intent, and how much of a motivating factor that's been for him. He didn't want to dwell too much on it, obviously, but that was clearly a really rough time for him personally, and I think people can relate to that. Also talked to Emeka, and it stands out to me just how high Emeka is on not just Jeremiah Smith, who he was asked a lot about today, but also Brandon Inniss and Carnell Tate. He talked about how Brandon and Carnell have been pushing each other in the offseason, in the weight room, in a similar way to what he and Marvin did, but talked about how they're a little more outspoken about it. They're really in each other's faces, motivating each other. And he said Carnell's been ready to go since high school. He expects big things from Brandon this year too. So I think those are, as Ohio State looks to figure out its receiver rotation exactly with those 4 players, I think it's good to hear that they've kind of taken that role of competing with each other in the weight room that way.
Yeah, I asked Devin about Jeremiah as well, and he just smiled and said he's a freak. And that just seems to be the word that comes up all the time. And we were at the 1870 Society event here on Saturday, and I asked Carnell Tate about Jeremiah Smith. Same thing. He's a freak. So you can just see. I mean, he's actually been back there as we've been in here working on the Monarch machine. So he's already taken that lesson from Marvin Harrison Jr., who's also back here after his week at the Combine. And so you can kind of see the passing of the torch there from Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, who's still here, and then grooming the likes of Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss, and Jeremiah Smith to be the next great wide receivers in that room. So we will get our first look at how all that might start to play out tomorrow morning. Ohio State holds its first of 15 spring practices on Tuesday, and we'll be back with you afterwards for another episode of press coverage to tell you what we learned.